Hello, friends. It's Holly Wainwright jumping into your ears, not literally, that would be weird, to tell you about the next season of Mid and how it's all about you. You see, over the last 5 seasons, we've talked about everything on Mid, from marriage and divorce to hormones and fashion and sex and grief, life, right? And we've had so much feedback from you about your own messy middles that we have decided to make a season all about that, about you and the challenges that you're facing. The next season of Mid is all about dilemmas and wisdom and sharing both those things. And I am phoning in my friends to help. Hopefully, we're going to sort it out. And me and my more qualified mates, we are really going there. Mid, Conversations for Gen X Women Who Are Anything But, is back in your ears with your questions on Tuesday, July 15th.
You're listening to a Mamamia podcast.
Well, hi there. It's Claire Murphy here. We hope you're enjoying well and our current exploration of all things peri and menopause, from symptoms to signs and treatments. In our last few episodes, we have explored the Peri We Do Not Care Club. We've done a bunch of myth busting, looked into HRT, or actually it's called MHT now, how to talk openly about menopause and get the support that we sometimes really desperately need. We've also been answering a stack of your great questions too. Thank you so much for sending them through. In this episode, we're sharing a no-filter conversation with the amazing actor Naomi Watts. It's about her new book. It's called, Dare I Say It, Everything I Wish I'd Known About Menopause. She's going to talk about her process of overcoming the sense of shame that she carried around her own experiences. So, like Halle Berry has done, they're leading Hollywood in talking about this, where a lot of our mums' generation maybe didn't, or were told not to, or were told to just kind of suck it up. So have a listen. This is Naomi Watts.
I think I just got to the point where the burden was too heavy. I was carrying around this secret. I wanted to feel my best self, and it wasn't a great feeling. And I think the time spent carrying that around, I think it wasn't until I was in my late 40s where I was like, I'm just going to own this.
From Mamamia, you're listening to No Filter, and I'm Mia Freedman. Here's something that I've noticed about famous people in Hollywood, particularly women. There's a difference between being a celebrity and being an actor. Kate Blanchett, actor. Jennifer Aniston, celebrity. Emma Stone, actor. Angelina Jolie, celebrity. Toni Collette, actor. Blake Lively, celebrity. Meryl Streep, actor. It's quite a fun game to play. And it's not about success or talent, because being a celebrity is absolutely not a diss. That's certainly not the lens through which I'm looking when I talk about this. Celebrities can win Oscars too, and they do. But I think there's a real difference, because with celebrities, we know a lot about their lives, their relationships and their exes and their kids if they have them, their bodies or their style or their co-stars or opinions, or maybe the causes they believe in. And oftentimes we probably know more about all of those things than we do about their work. But with actors, we draw a bit of a blank about their personal lives, because they tend to disappear into their work and the characters that they play, and they don't give a lot of themselves publicly, whether it's in interviews or on social. And that's not by accident. My guest today has been an actor for most of her life. Almost 40 years, since her late teens when she was on Home and Away and Hey Dad, all the way through to more recently when she has been nominated for 100 acting awards and won 46 of them. She's one of the most famous actors of her generation, but I wouldn't call her a celebrity. Naomi Watts is 56 now, and the reason that I would put her in the actor category is because even though she was actually with another very famous actor, Liev Schreiber, and they have 2 kids together, and the fact that one of her closest friends is Nicole Kidman, Naomi has always been very private about her off-screen life. She's let her work very much do the talking. You probably didn't even know that she recently married actor Billy Crudup. And you probably didn't even know, even though they're both huge deals in Hollywood. Again, because she's more of an actor than she is a celebrity. Now, a couple of years ago, something pretty interesting happened. I follow Naomi on socials because I think she's an incredible actor, and also we have some friends in common. And I noticed that she was starting to venture more into the public eye as herself. She was one of the first famous women to talk openly on social media, no less, about menopause. She experienced it far earlier than most women, and it caused her a huge amount of shame, something that she's only just recently decided to reject. She's written a book. It's called, dare I say it, Everything I Wish I'd Known About Menopause. And it is so good. It's partly a memoir because we learn a lot about Naomi's own experiences and her life, but it's also a field guide because it's packed with really useful information from experts for any woman who is in this life stage or about to hit this life stage. The thing you're about to discover about Naomi, and I promise I'll get to the interview in a second, she is stupidly normal, like ridiculously normal. She doesn't seem like a celebrity. So maybe she's kind of inventing a new category because she's kicking these huge career goals as an actor. Maybe you saw her in Capote versus the Swans and The Watcher and a whole lot of stuff. She's having this major resurgence in her career. Everybody wants to work with her. The book is incredible while at the same time being really candid. So she's this incredible actor who only seems to be getting more and more accomplished and skilled at her craft, while at the same time she started to become really candid about her life publicly, and that is new. I started this conversation with Naomi discussing what she calls the bookends of shame in her life, which I thought was such an interesting way to talk about it. The fact that she started her period really late and the fact that she started perimenopause really early. Enjoy this delightful conversation with Naomi Watts. Can you tell me what you were ashamed of when you found out at 36 that you were going into early menopause?
Well, I was ashamed that I was, thinking this was the end of everything. And, not just my fertility, my career, my use as a woman, which is absurd. And I dig into that in the book as well. But this societal imprint of your worth is wrapped up in your fertility.
Yeah.
And when that reproductive system breaks down, as Dr. Gunter, her quote is just so wonderful. You're just chucked in the pile. That's it. You're done.
What's the point of you? Yeah.
My way of saying is, am I supposed to go to the corner and pull out my knitting needles and just rock on the chair? It really felt scary, and that created a lot of shame, knowing, and I think this speaks to the beginning bookend, you just want to be like everyone else. You just want to be on the same page at the same time and not sort of go too far from the crowd that you're moving within. And certainly that's how it started with me when everyone was, having their period in their 13, 14-year-old years, and I was nowhere. And I went so far as to make myself be a part of that group so I could keep up with the Joneses, and literally faked having a period and stuffed a tampon up there, my poor little vag. And just so my boarding school friends would see a string and think that I was a grown up too. So the minute I hit menopause, or started feeling symptoms and sort of was slowly testing the waters with some of my closest friends, and it was all met with, "Oh, don't be silly. There's no way. You're way too young. That's just ridiculous," which instantly told me, this is not happening for anyone. And so you retreat, and then the shame begins.
For so many of us, well, for me, my menopause and my peri symptoms and all of the emotions and physical symptoms that came with it happened when I was in a really good place in my career. I'd achieved a lot and I'd had 3 children. For you, it came at a very different place and it happened early for you. A lot of women who have cancer treatment or medical issues will often be thrust early into menopause and might grapple with similar things. You hadn't had your children yet, and your career was, you weren't yet Naomi Watts, in quote marks. Had you already done Mulholland Drive?
I had, and I was
Naomi Watts in quote marks.
As ridiculous as it sounds when you're saying it yourself, I had done not only Mulholland Drive, but King Kong and The Ring.
Okay, so you were already Naomi Watts.
I was playing an ingenue in King Kong. And just at the tail end of that, I think I went to New Zealand to do some pickups, reshoots. And I'd already met my partner who I knew we were trying to start a family, but hadn't succeeded at that point. And that's when an older friend of mine said, well, you might want to go and get your blood work taken. I was like, really? Why? And she said, just check your numbers. They can tell with hormones if that's having anything to do with you not succeeding at getting pregnant. So I said, okay, fine. Went to my gynecologist, and then he called me back and he said, well, you know, what other symptoms have you been having? Because these numbers suggest that you're close to menopause. And the word peri was not.
No, it was not a thing.
It wasn't a thing. And I mean, it might have been known within the medical community, but it certainly wasn't a word I was familiar with right up until I was well past it. And that somehow feels like a much gentler word.
Yeah, it does. It feels like a sort of an off-ramp.
Yes.
To a greener pasture.
Yeah. Close to menopause did not sound like that. Sounded like a dive into the deep end.
Yeah.
And especially at the precipice of wanting to start a family. So he asked me if I'd gone through any symptoms. And I said, well, night sweats. And I'd been ticking those boxes when you have to do those like litany of questions, night sweats for years. And I had chalked it up to, an allergy to a certain food, or maybe that extra glass of wine, or, you know, something that my body just wasn't tolerating. And then I talked about my periods being a little closer together, much lighter, much shorter. And he said, yeah, well, what about your mom? When did she go into menopause? And I said, oh, shit. She went in at 45. That's all I know. I didn't know anything else. I didn't know that she'd had a multitude of symptoms, that she wasn't feeling great. And I didn't know that this had, you know, taken place over a passage of time. I just knew that she had stopped her periods at 45. And I was 36 at the time. So I still felt a long way away from that. And and I think he said your numbers to get pregnant, you have to fall under sort of 15. And I was already in the high teens, and my blood tests after that were just going up and up. But there's no one specific test to say you are in menopause, as you know. The one main signifier, I suppose, is that you haven't had a menstruation for a full year. And then you get your menopause birthday. Yippee. And then from there on, you're basically postmenopausal or menopausal.
You decided to call your book Dare I Say It? And on the cover is a picture of you with a megaphone and fires coming out of it. That is not the kind of soft, focused memoir that we would expect from someone as famous as you, or from any kind of woman, really. And dare I say it, I want to ask about that, because does that speak to shame? Does it speak to anger? What's that about? Tell me about that decision.
Yeah, lots of things. Well, first of all, I want to say I never saw it as a memoir per se, but it's interesting you say that. So do you think of it as a memoir?
Yeah, because when someone asked me, when I learned what a memoir was, like an autobiography is like your whole life. A memoir might be a theme in your life or a period of time in your life.
Right.
And to me, this is about a theme in your life. And it's not just about your life. It's about your life through the lens of menopause. But it's not just a textbook. There's a lot of personal stuff. You brought a lot of yourself to this book.
I had to bring myself to it. You can't do this in half measure. Otherwise, I really would have been, to me, it would have been strictly a memoir where I'm just telling endless stories about myself. But it's shared. The focus is shared with the expertise of doctors, with other friends of mine, friends of friends, their stories.
It's very useful.
Well, thank you. Also, I mean, it's the book I wanted when I was going through that, because the internet was not even really active. I had no place to go. And when as I told you, when I'd go to friends and I felt the doors closed, I was like internalizing everything and then thinking I was losing my mind because I didn't have an outlet. So this is supposed to be a cozy conversation on a couch with your girlfriend.
We talk about at Mamamia the 3 pillars of everything we do are help, heart, and humor.
Yeah.
And this book is all 3 of those things for me. It's funny, it's incredibly helpful, and it has so much heart. And it's the book I needed too, because it made me feel sort of seen, heard, and understood, which is another thing that we talk about when you're communicating with women. But dare I say it? Tell me about that.
So as you know, choosing titles, names for anything is virtually impossible. Everything's taken, I've had that kind of difficulty with my company Stripes Beauty as well, naming products. And it's just, it takes a lot of effort. I've always been into word plays and expressions, and to speak to your point about heart, humor, and help. I want all of those things incorporated into every bit of messaging I'm trying to put across. And yes, I wanted it to feel bold. I did dare to say it. Why? Because there was a need, and I'm sick of holding the secret and shame. And, I feel like shit. And so the chances are every other woman who's lucky enough to be able to go through menopause, to live that long, is going to feel some version of that. Some might sail through and don't need to, have one single conversation, but it's just nice to know, hey, are you going through that? Yeah, me too. I see you. It's tough. How about we talk about it? I wanted to create a conversation that helped women feel, as you say, seen. And yes, the humor and the irreverence were all part of it, because it's so much more palatable. It's not all doom and gloom, although there is plenty of it, and I'm not going to shy away from it, but we can approach it with some humor, tell these ridiculous, horrific stories. And then, as you remove yourself from them, they can be funny, and you got through it. And through that, you learned something, you survived, and you can share it with your friend. So it's a little less icky for them. And so that was sort of the point of the book. And the dare I say it was it's an expression that my grandmother used all the time. And as you may know, she's the matriarch of my family and has left me with all of her values. And it just felt like it was bold, cheeky, and fun. Yeah, I'm daring. I hope it doesn't feel too uncomfortable for you. It certainly was for me, and I'm guessing all of these other women that had to carry around the same kind of secrets. But let's help you tolerate it more.
After this short break, Naomi and I discuss what it's like to be a woman in her 50s in Hollywood, and also how she met her husband, Billy Crudup. Stay with us.
Now, quick question. How many half-used beauty products are currently living in your bathroom drawer? Too many, right? That's where U Beauty comes in. We test everything from supermarket finds to luxury splurges and tell you what's worth it. U Beauty, saving your skin and your wallet. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
Your experience is, there are so many universal things about going through menopause. And some people might think, oh, well, she's a Hollywood star. She's one of the most famous women in the world. It would be different for her. And what was so funny about your book is that some of the examples and some of the ways it manifested for you were not like a regular person, like the forgetfulness. And the story you tell about you were going to the Golden Globes and you were texting with a friend and you missed the boarding call. So you missed your flight. You had to get on another flight and you had to go the whole way. It was packed with your Golden Globes dress on your lap. Now, that's probably not an anecdote that would happen to many other women, but we've all had that same sort of experience. It's like celebrities, they're just like us, right? But you live in this microcosm of, like our culture on steroids in terms of Hollywood and the way it judges women for getting older. And it would seem from the outside that the worst thing you can do in Hollywood is get older. How did it play out for you? I mean, there's the secret of it and the shame of it when you were going through it. But when you decided to speak out about it and be public about it and start a company and write this book, what were the considerations that you had to take into account and the people around you in terms of what impact it would have on your career?
Yeah. So I started late, as many of your listeners may know, not by choice. It just didn't turn out that I got going in my early 20s, like lots of actors. I tried, didn't go so well. And not until David Lynch cast me in Mulholland Drive was I known within the industry. And then things kicked off pretty quickly after that. And I remember at the time an agent saying, well, it's all going to dry up at 40.
Quite literally.
Yeah. But so you better put the pedal to the metal and just go like gangbusters, get working. So I was like, oh my God. And why? Why is it all over? What do you mean? And they said, well, kind of what happens is you work until you're, unfuckable. And sorry, I don't know if
no, you can swear. I've heard that a lot. I've heard that a lot. This idea, and that's part of menopause, right? It's like the official time when you're not fuckable anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and what does that mean? Okay, right. When you're not producing babies, you're not fuckable. They don't want to fuck you. Doesn't sound right or fair, but it sat with me, and I did work like crazy for that 10 years. And I felt the looming. And then, as you know, I was then told I was going into early menopause. And so I was definitely not going to share that secret. I definitely wish I had a resource of some kind for me to feel less alone, like a book, like the internet, like friends, doctors even, to talk to. There was no one. And I think I just got to the point where the burden was too heavy. I was carrying around this secret. I wanted to feel my best self, and it wasn't a great feeling. And I think the time spent carrying that around, I think it wasn't until I was in my late 40s where I was like, I'm just going to own this. And it was really a lot to do with meeting my husband. He's now my husband, and being able to be brave enough with him. It was really from then on, and he wasn't like, oh, ick. That's not, he didn't have any squeamishness around it. He was just like, oh, great. Okay, what should we do? The minute I felt safe sharing it with my partner, I just kind of went surround sound and told everyone. And I'd already been in the beauty space before with Onda Beauty and learned a lot about skincare and stuff. And the skincare piece of it, that was a massive issue, the symptom for me. And I had no idea that was related to menopause. I had raging, itchy, agitated, red skin, and I was on TV hours and hours of the day, and it was just really uncomfortable, and nothing that a cortisone cream would fix more than a day or two. It was just, I was in a loop. And it wasn't until I did deep research that some of these ingredients in these products I'd been using before were just now not going to work for me any longer. They were too harsh, too stripping. And so I wanted to create a line. And that's when I came up with the idea for Stripes Beauty that was specifically targeting women, or speaking to women with those same symptoms and targeting their needs, massive hydration loss, basically.
When you decided to speak out, were the people around you who manage your career nervous? Because would that change how you were seen in your industry? Would it change the parts that you were considered for?
I certainly thought about it myself over and over again. Is this a good idea or a terrible idea? I really oscillated back and forth, and I took my time. It took years to come to develop the nerve to actually finally say it out loud. And like I said, the exhaustion, I thought, this is too much to carry. And almost naming every problem that you have before somebody else does is empowering.
Yeah.
Once I learned the statistics that all of these women are going into menopause every single day, and that's 50% of the population that will get there, why is it such a taboo thing? This just doesn't make any sense.
Have you noticed that it's changed the way you've been perceived? Do you get sent different scripts?
Well, now, I'm working on a show with all women right now, and menopause, there's lines in it that is addressing menopause. There was in Feud as well. They know I'm not afraid to talk about it, obviously.
You said you've become like the Hollywood go-to confessor that
girl.
Women, like famous women, just text you, I'm there, I've arrived. What does that feel like?
Yeah, it's funny. And I welcome them. I say, yeah, bring it on. What do you need? A doctor? Do you need a shoulder? Do you need a laugh? How can I help? And I really appreciate it. Yeah, people want to confess. They don't want to carry it on their own. And knowing that I have done, a few years of researching it, experiencing it, I think that puts them on a fast track of feeling, a little bit more comfortable in the beginning of that stage.
For actors, just back to your career for a second, for actors, it seems like from the outside there's two types. There's celebrities and there's actors. And with actors, from my perspective, it seems like you don't know a lot about their private life. They don't do necessarily a lot of press. They don't post a lot on social. It's about disappearing into the work. And that does seem to be like a choice. And again, no judgment on either choice, but they do seem to be different kind of paths. And I was so interested to see a few years ago when you started talking about menopause, it wasn't just coming out as a menopausal woman, but it was also making a different choice. I'm going to allow the public to know me as Naomi more than just the character that I play. I was so fascinated by that decision and why you made it at that time in your life.
I think didn't it happen with COVID, where we were all trying to connect with each other, whether that was on Instagram and being foolish or putting some message across that was hopefully connecting women with other women. I think and certainly the idea to launch Stripes happened at the beginning of COVID. It was something I'd been percolating, but like I said, I didn't have the courage to go forward. But when we were all stuck at home with nothing but our ideas and our family and, dreams, basically, that's when I started to really formulate and just go, fuck this. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
The story of how you and Billy met, I had never asked you guys about your origin story before. I love people's origin stories, but what I didn't realize is that you had met on a job and that you'd actually played lovers and that you'd had sex scenes together. Acting is so weird.
Weird.
It's so weird.
Such a strange job,
and
wearing other people's clothes, saying other people's words.
So weird. And you were like, we'd been dry humping, but I just recently ended my long-term relationship with the father of my children, and it didn't occur to me. Like, how does it change from, we're just dry humping and like, what, how?
You get to know that person. It's the in-between moments. It's not the dry humping, although there was a moment after we'd got to know each other, which was several months of sitting around talking about, any list of things, whether it was kids or acting or business, travel, we covered everything in these sometimes hour-long lighting setups, and we just got along. And you notice how someone works with other people, not just your connectivity, but how they treat other people, how people respond to them. You learn a lot about each other through, a 12, 14-hour day sometimes.
Does it start off as because of the physical intimacy, is it sometimes like any other connection? It's like sometimes small talk and then sometimes you really get to know someone and it goes deeper? Or do you just go straight to the deeper because you're already kind of dry humping, so it's a bit of a shortcut?
Oh gosh, Mia. We are both consummate professionals. I mean, Billy really seriously is there for the work. And then I think, yes, some gentle, nice, friendly conversations developed over time. And then when we saw each other, and by the way, we did meet here and there throughout New York, but that was when we came to know each other properly on the set of Gypsy. Later, outside of work, we had friends who were scheming, who were trying to put us together. And that's when you learn even more about each other, not just who they are in the workplace, how they interact, but that's when I think the crack of the door opened and the boundaries sort of slightly shifted.
Because you weren't looking for it.
I was not looking for it. And, though we'd been separated for a good year, we'd only just officially announced it and told the kids. So I certainly wasn't in any, by any means looking to partner up with anyone. And it was a very, very slow start.
For a lot of us, we go through, for those people who are in long-term relationships, a lot of women go through menopause with the person who knew them before. So it's kind of, and it provides its own challenges, but there's a certain, safety in not having to come out to sort of have it happen to someone who's known you for a long time. When you're on the other side of it and you're dating someone, can you talk about that first night when you came home and with the patches?
Yeah.
And what went through your mind?
It was mortifying. And I'm always going to go very carefully. So I already had carried the shame in private for quite some time. So to begin, exchanging touchy-feely moments with somebody was quite scary. I didn't know how my body was working so much anymore. And this patch, there is many different ways to take hormone replacement therapy, as you know. At this point in time, I was on the patch. And if anyone's taken the patch before, it leaves a nasty, sticky,
that you have to scrub off. I can't believe a doctor told you to take it off with car oil.
Yeah, he was like, it's the only thing that works. So I got caught up in the moment and had to excuse myself. And again, this is in the book, which is why I feel like I'm okay telling it. Billy has signed off on it. But yeah, I couldn't get, not just, I took off the patch, but the mark. And I was just in there for ages trying to, get rid of any trace. Like he would think what was wrong with you? What's that all over your body?
But why did you feel you had to take off the patch? Because someone new was going to see you naked.
Yeah.
Right.
This is the end. I'm only here, as a aging woman, I'm not going to be able to, we hadn't even had those kind of discussions about, would he want to extend his family or anything. So
you're already in your 40s though. So this is so interesting about the shame that you carried. It's not like it would have been a shock.
No, I know, but it's just what
it's how you felt. It's it's the shame.
Gaslighting yourself. And it's my fault. I did this to myself. I brought myself onto menopause early because I did X, Y, Z, And
you needed to literally scrub away the signs that you were no longer fertile.
Yes. Can you imagine? And I literally
I actually can.
I came out after being in there for far too long without seeming completely weird on the other side of the door. And he was like, is everything okay? And I just was like, yes, well, no, but yes. And I was just in there. Look, I'm in menopause. Should I just leave? I'm sure this is going to be not what you want.
Oh my God.
And he was like, what?
He's like, we're just getting started. Why?
So, and well,
And then he said something lovely to you, which we're not going to talk about, but that's in the book, that made you feel in that moment so safe. And clearly it's like it unlocked something in you that just gave you the confidence to not just be comfortable with him, but be comfortable with the world. I mean, that's an incredible gift.
It is. It was a level of safety that not only did I want, I really, really needed. And it was, like you say, a powerful gift.
The rest of my conversation with Naomi, we talk about beauty and Botox and the surgery she will and won't have. Lots more after this short break.
Parenting podcasts can be a bit earnest. Parenting Out Loud is not that podcast.
This person who I may not agree with politically is trying to talk about integrating children, not just into his professional life, but into public life.
I have referred to myself as one and done. That article did make me rethink the term.
It took about 11 seconds for this to go viral.
Oh God, is this the ejaculate one? That is deranged and I love it.
Parenting changes the way you see everything. Parenting Out Loud takes the big conversations of the moment and puts them through that filter.
Because if parents are thinking about it, we're talking about it.
Parenting Out Loud. Listen weekly wherever you get your podcasts.
You talk about aging as well, and it's something that we all... I mean, aging is exhausting, Naomi. Like, it's even for someone whose faces are not connected with our work at all. It just feels like there are so many choices to make. Do I get Botox? Do I not? How much do I get? How often do I get it? Do I get a bit of filler? Do I do this? And all these different treatments and all these things you can try and all the money. And then do I go on Ozempic? Like, it does feel completely exhausting. How do you personally navigate all of those choices when you are so under scrutiny?
I'm obsessed with knowing everything, researching it, taking consultations even, talking to friends. Wait, you did this? You did what? Okay. And what was the recovery? How was it? And I've certainly experimented with little bits and pieces here and there. I say this in the book. For now, I'm going to just tolerate my jowls, and hopefully you will too.
For now.
Yeah, for now on camera, and hope to, bejesus that the DP has enough talent that he can light me well.
The director of photography.
Yeah.
Do you feel vulnerable when you go onto a set, or I don't know how these things happen, like cast, not that you'd have to audition for anything anymore, but it must feel vulnerable, like in the makeup chair with the director or the director of photography. Yeah,
for sure. And I always, I try to just get ahead of it. Like, in the best way, I just often go over to the DOP in Australia and say, hey, these are not my friend and they're not going to be your friend either. So these little jowls here, they create pockets, and if you can help me out, and it's not always bounce that I need a negative light. I've learned.
Tricks.
I know the tricks. And, there was a time where I would think, oh, I can't believe that actress spoke to the DP or the director like that. But we have to do that to look after ourselves. And especially when you're working on a low budget movie.
Yeah.
And, everyone's fighting time. And so, or things get fixed later on, amazing things that can happen in post. But I want to try and put as much as I can the message forward that it's okay. It's okay to age. It's a privilege, and it is uncomfortable. It's not for the faint of heart, but it's okay to do nothing, and it's okay to do lots of things if you want to, whatever suits your fancy. And I'm not swearing off it, by the way. There may be a time where
never
I
say
see
never.
Never say never. And I say this in the book, Marie Kondo, who was like, everything had to be exactly in place until she had 3 kids. And then she changed her whole narrative, because who can have everything in exact precision when you've got kids flying around the place? Well, the same goes for me. I'd like to promote healthy aging, but at the same time, if they come up with something that makes me feel so much better, then I might just do it.
I want to ask you 2 more questions. The first is about grief, because that's something that takes a lot of us by surprise. I was going through perimenopause and menopause also through COVID, and I would go for these walks and I would just cry every day. I would cry, and I couldn't. My son had moved out of home, and I couldn't really work out why I was crying. I thought it was about that. And now looking back, I realized that I was grieving. I was in this transition process between, menopause and perimenopause is a transition, right? It's like reverse puberty. And I was grieving for what I was leaving behind. What was your experience of grief?
Yeah. And, there's the physiological side of things, and then there's the emotional side. And I remember actually when I had my first baby, that drop in hormones, and when you leave the hospital and you're just sobbing and you have no idea why. You've got this beautiful baby and you're like, I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah.
Like anything could make me cry. So there's that when you're going through perimenopause, this like the hormones just suddenly flood out of your body, as well as, yes, you're grieving this change, this transition. You're a different you, and you're not young anymore. How do you walk through this next period of your life as this new you? And it can be scary. And the saving grace for me has been through connecting with other women and sharing my deepest, darkest secrets, my truth, and knowing that we're not alone. And we grieve all the time. Every day there is a little version of grief from beginning to the end of our lives. And it doesn't have to look like a death in the family or a friend, or it's losing a job, or it's saying goodbye to your parents because you're leaving the country, or any big or small way, there is grief involved, and crying. We talk about this in the book, is so cathartic. It's free therapy.
Free therapy. I love how you said that. Crying is free therapy. I'd never thought about it like that. And you also talk about the non-free therapy, the paid kind of therapy, which is also really helpful. I know,
and I'm not a big crier. It's interesting. People see my movies and think, oh, wow, she must be an emotional wreck. But I'm pretty stoic.
And playful, which is something that
it's another way of getting away from the grief. So, but it is another version of that. It is like sharing something that you're afraid to feel. But I think, the book, the company Stripes Beauty, and my movie career, they're all kind of enmeshed. They're all about hopefully giving people permission to feel something.
It's very generous what you've done.
Thank you.
It is. No, it is very generous. My last question is about, what are the good bits?
I would say, the women, finding those women, and they're the ones that you've known for a long time, that you've brought through decades, that just gets deeper and deeper. And then there's actually room for new ones, which is, I never would have thought that I could create friendships after my 40s with my life as full as it is. But I still have room. I'm still making great connections with women who have similar stories. So I would say, yeah, they're my teachers. None of the women around me they're not suffering fools. They're smart, they're funny, they're adventurous. So I'm really proud of those. And yeah, getting honest in your relationship. Communication is everything. It's the gateway to far less suffering, and not just in your relationship, at work, you know. And I'm so glad that all of this has led to, you know, more ease with the conversation surrounding menopause. You know, and I've experiences where I'm stopped on the streets now, Mia, and this is one of the good bits, where I think, oh God, I haven't got my lippy on. They're going to want a selfie, you know, because of a movie that's seen me or something. And they say, I just want you to know I had a conversation with my husband and I never thought I'd be able to talk about it. And it's all because of you. Thank you. Thank you for creating the dialogue. And that is so meaningful to me. That is, you know, just for one person, and that one person might tell another person. That is, I feel like my job is done. And, you know, I feel proud of having taken the risk to do all of it. So
how are you so normal?
Am I normal? I don't think I'm that normal.
But you're stupidly normal. And it's like, I've met a lot of famous people, but it's like you're not famous. They're different to you. And I've never seen anyone wear their fame as lightly as you wear yours. And I've been thinking a lot about that. And is it because, do you think, you weren't famous when you were really young and so you were a fully formed person? People say you freeze at the age, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think nothing happened until 30, 31. So I was fully formed. I've spent most of my life not famous, although now it's getting
half. Yeah.
The only time I would say I exploit my fame is to get a table, you know, at a restaurant. That's when I might call ahead and hope that name might shift someone from a no to a yes.
Well, you are a gift. Your book is a gift. Your work is a gift. We haven't really spoken about your work, but I mean, obviously watching this renaissance that you're having, you've always worked steadily, but it seems like, you know, you've become a muse for Ryan Murphy and people have been looking at you in a different way and you're getting to do the most extraordinary work and you just keep getting better and better on screen and off it. So, you know, I just thank you. Thank you for writing this book and being in the world.
Oh, thanks, Mia. Thank you so much for having me.
See, I told you that she was stupidly normal. Isn't she delightful? She just buzzes at a frequency that is very normal, like the girlfriend that you've had for a really long time. There are so many elements to Naomi's story that are best left in her own words as she's written them. Like, she has this experience with sex toys, which made me laugh so much, that she wrote about. So we've popped the link to her book, dare I say it, in the show notes. Now, the executive producer of No Filter is Naima Brown. Audio production is by Jacob Round. And I'm your host, Mia Freedman. Thanks for having me in your ears.
What a great chat. If you're after more women's health news, Well is your full body health check. We drop every week on a Thursday. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about something that can be a bit scary, but we're hoping to kind of maybe open a dialogue with you about, and that is, of course, the big C, cancer. Some that specifically impact women, like gynecological cancers, ovarian, breast cancer, but we'll be touching on one that's impacting quite a few Aussies these days, and that is bowel cancer. We'll be taking all your questions and concerns too, so if you have a question for the experts, make sure you check out the show notes to find out how you can get your questions answered by the experts. We'll be covering screening, early detection, diagnosis, helping you get to know your body so you know that something isn't quite right and you feel empowered to go and get those health checks. So there is a link to follow us in the show notes. Check it out. We will catch you on Thursday.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.